We have arrived at the very end of 2023, and now we look ahead to the first week of January. Happy New Year! And is it possible, even conceivable, that it may actually snow again? Well, we'll see. We'll talk about that tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Omni. I'm sorry, no, not by Omni. Brought to you by Tempest.
Whoops.
Yeah, that was a slip. Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you too can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet, and it'll come in handy just in case it ever does snow again. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. Uh, Tempest is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show, and if you use the coupon code I want a weather station, Joe Rayo, what will they get?
10 big percent off, Joe. 10.
Yes. So here we are. It's New Year's Eve at the end of probably what was one of the stranger weather years. I was reading around Albany from the Weather Service at Albany, uh, all sorts of records. Warmest year on record, third warmest December. I think it was the sixth wettest year on record, and so a whole bunch of things. Warm and wet, warm and wet, warm and wet. I mean, that seems to be the running theme, and I'm sure there's going to be a number of others that are going to finish. That December's going to finish as the wettest on record, or certainly in the top five, and probably also a lot of those warm weather records getting broken. So uh, we'll put that aside, and now we move to 2024, and of course we all know it's never going to snow again, right?
Be careful what you wish for, folks, because sometimes you get it. And if the models, the mid-range models are correct, we're going to get it by this time next week, it would appear.
Well, one of the things that that I always look for when I'm looking at these systems as they're evolving is to try to see if there's any sort of consistency within the models. And what's really remarkable to me is that the European, the GFS, the Canadian, they're all within a handful of miles from each other in terms of how this low evolves, how the low tracks. So that certainly lends, and we're 6 days away, really, so we're not exactly talking about something that's out 10 days or more. But it's remarkable to see the models, and it hasn't really changed very much since they sort of started lining up yesterday, and it's been about 5 runs in a row now where we've seen this go. I think when you see that, I think it lends a lot of confidence, at least from the standpoint of saying something's going to happen. Now, in terms of specifics, there's no way anybody can say anything at this point as to what exactly is going to happen, where it's going to happen. But I think we can confidently say that there is going to be some sort of storm system uh, off the coast sometime next weekend. I think that's a fair statement based on what we're looking at.
I think so, yeah. It would appear that this is all dependent upon the exact track and how strong the storm gets. It could very easily, if it takes the right kind of a track, Joe, and keeps just enough cold air in. The one thing I noticed on the chat board before we came on the air are people who are actually, I guess you could say, complaining about the fact, yeah, it's going to get cold. Yeah, but it's not really extreme cold like they
Why
were.
would you want extreme cold?
It's a moderately cold, or it's really not all that cold. Let me tell you something, folks. As long as you get it cold enough,
That's
if you want snow, and this looks like we could conceivably be just cold enough for the white stuff next weekend. Of course, as I said, a little bit more to the west, and it may bring in enough milder air to change whatever snow over to rain, especially along the coastal plain. But if it goes a little ways to the east, it could stay just cold enough, and you could put down. And at this point, since we're in a snow drought, I guess you can call it, we could put down, even in the most conservative situation, 3, 4, 5 inches of
Oh,
snow.
he's throwing numbers out already. Oh my God. It's 6 days away. He's throwing numbers out. Stop.
Throwing ranges out or
Stop.
possibilities. All right, I'll
Look,
stop.
uh, I'm just
Wah, wah,
wah
wah.
wah wah. Yes. Um, yeah. I mean, if you're sitting around rooting for the idea, first of all, I hope you don't have an oil heating bill, um, or even a nat gas, heating your home because you start getting visions of extreme, if any kind of extreme cold starts showing up on the models, prices for nat gas and for heating oil are going to shoot up. So I don't think that that's what you really want to happen. And also, you're sort of sitting around rooting for something that happens maybe once every 10 or 15 years. I mean, this is not we go we can go several winters without seeing a true prolonged Arctic, blast of cold air. And
Right.
and you're right. It doesn't need to be extreme cold. It just needs to be cold enough. And then I think, judging by how this whole thing is evolving, there are two things that come into mind. One is the fact that we have actually started this pattern change that's been probably talked about to death everywhere in social media. But we started this pattern change in the atmosphere probably around Christmas. And it's a long, grinding process. I still don't quite know where this is all going to wind up in terms of the pattern that probably will dominate for much of the rest of the winter. But on the way there, as this pattern has changed, I mean, if you don't think the pattern has changed from last week, you're not looking. But on the way there, when you're in that process of pattern change, windows, I can call it a window of opportunity. Windows of opportunity open up, and I think that's what we're seeing this coming weekend. I think the most important thing, Joe, is that high that builds east of James Bay and begins to funnel down low-level cold air down through upstate New York and New England on, our favorite north-northeast wind. Um, that I think is going to be that's the critical part of this equation because that high is going to be the one that's going to keep, and it looks like the high is going to have a little bit of staying power, which is because the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, is going to be negative. So although the teleconnections are kind of in your favor with this, so I think we have to pay close attention to that high, how it builds, how strong it gets, and that I think will ultimately answer a lot of questions in terms of rain snow line, in terms of amounts, in terms of where those amounts are going to be. If indeed we're going to have this, if we're indeed going to have this particular storm system impact us next weekend. That high is key, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. The temperatures look like they're going to be, at least in the lower Hudson Valley, in the low to mid 40s for highs through Wednesday. And then we're going to see a notable downturn in the temperatures, only maybe near 40 on Thursday, and probably not getting out of the 30s. There's that cold air associated with that big high for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And also, Joe, I think by the end of the week into the weekend, we're going to see some rather blustery northerly winds blowing that colder air in. And again, the weekend starts dry with sunshine Friday, maybe a few clouds on Saturday, and then late Saturday night into Sunday, as that coastal disturbance gets closer, it's looking like we're going to see, I think right now, initially, we're going to see snow. Not rain, but snow initially. And then the big question is again, the strength of the storm and the exact track. Will we go over to rain or will we see kind of a mixed bag of snow and rain? I mean, this is too far away to start, getting into specifics, but for the first time this winter season, for the first time this season overall, we do have a chance of seeing some sticking or shoveling snow, shovelable snow, in our future, again for late Saturday on into Sunday.
I my snow removal guys that I work with, they are they've had their equipment basically in the garages for all of last year, and they're chomping at the bit uh, to have some sort of system to deal with. Um, let's just say a big hello and a happy new year to everybody that is on the chat board tonight. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe weather show. And for those of you who are not on the chat board but lurking in the background, we also extend a big hello. And if you like the show, hit the like button. And subscribe to my YouTube channel. Turn the notifications on so you never miss the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. And if indeed we are going to be dealing with something a week from today, I think it's fair to say that Joe and I might wind up being on this Friday and Saturday. So just a heads up there. We'll see. We'll see how it goes as the week goes by. Joe, we've got a bunch of super chat hits I want to acknowledge. The chairman, Scott Briller, hitting super chat. Thank you, Scott. Your moderator is turned on again, by the way. In 1996, about this time, weather models began predicting the January 7th snowstorm in Central Park, which produced 20 inches of snow. I guess in 1995, and then going into 96. Yes, that is quite correct. And Joe Lopresti, thank you for hitting Super Chat. Happy New Year. Chuck Cardillo, Happy New Year to you and your family as well. David Fuller, the same. Happy New Year and thank you. And Vince Robinson, thank you. He was the first Super Chat hit of tonight. By the way, Joe, I have to say, you know who could, there's, who could, if she's not lurking in the background, she should be. And that's Governor Janet Mills of the great state of Maine, who apparently, in that big storm from a couple of weeks, excuse me, I sneezed, from that big storm.
I thought you said we're going to say lurking in the wings this evening. I thought you were going to say Mrs. Bundy, but
oh no, she was lurking in the wings yesterday because the Birds was on Turner Classic Movies. No, apparently. This is another example of how when you don't do what you're supposed to do as a politician when it comes to weather, right? Well, throw the National Weather Service under the bus. Well, apparently, and good for them, by the way, NWS came roaring back and said, and then the headline I'm reading here, and this is from the Maine Wire, which is a news wire, National Weather Service strongly suggests Janet Mills lied about storm warnings, and she apparently, there's a lot. They had a ton of power outages in Maine, and a ton of, blowback is going back to the governor's office, who's basically saying, "Well, we were never told. We didn't know about it. The Weather Service, dropped the ball." So once again, we're watching a situation where civil servants are blaming other civil servants, essentially, and the Weather Service came right back and said. Forecasters informed state and local leaders 3 days prior to the storm that Maine would see intense rain and flooding. 2 days prior, the agency issued flood watches and high wind watches 2 full days before the storm began. So there you have it. So, this game that politicians play with us when stuff like this happens, the game is up. Okay, it's just up. There's no way. There's a paper trail. Okay, so we know when the watches and warnings are issued. If you're not going to pay attention, then it's your fault. It's on you. So anyway, she may be watching tonight because if she didn't get it from her minions in the governor's office, she certainly would have gotten the information here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which airs Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and Fridays and Saturdays in case there's a storm. There is a subtle plug.
Well, where we used to work at FiOS 1, the interim news director, or the person who became the news director after the original news director moved on to some greener pastures. And I told this story before, that we had a case of severe weather coming. We always used to have to do or attend a meeting at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, an editorial meeting, and just inform everybody at the desks as to what the weather was going to be like. And I recall vividly one case where we said that we were going to, at least I remember vividly saying that there was going to be severe weather. It was coming in the next 2 or 3 hours. I went through a long dissertation.
I know. I was there. I remember.
How potent this system was. And when I was finished, the person in charge simply said, "Thank you, Joe, and let's move on to the next. What's the next story? Bank robbery,
right.
Killings,
somebody
like that." That really was on her mind. Well, an hour and a half later, we had the most hellacious thunderstorm pass over Portchester, where FiOS 1 was located. And it was so bad that Joe and I actually went outside. Well, actually, we were not outside. We were under, what would you call that, Joe?
Oh, it was the outdoor parking lot, but it was like a parking garage, and there's like
Garage,
an overhang.
an overhang or whatever, covering this for our people online. And all of a sudden, the person who was in charge starts screaming for
Why
us.
wasn't I told about
Why
this?
wasn't I told? Why wasn't it? And what are you gonna
Oh, the
say?
poor dear. Oh well.
So
We
it's not. It also extends beyond government.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
They don't listen. They don't care. Lou
Yeah.
Lisi, Louis Alisi hitting super chat. Thanks very much. And I think everybody's probably at this point chomping at the bit, saying, "Get to it, get to it." Okay, let's get to it. Um, Another day, another upper trough, and another day, a lot of clouds today, Joe, across much of the Northeast and back through the Great
That was a
Lakes.
big. I want to tell you, I on my Facebook, and I apologize. I should really put an apology on my Facebook page from yesterday. Posted a forecast yesterday for today. I didn't just go mainly sunny or mostly sunny, alluding to the fact that there could be some clouds mixed. I went flat, straight out sunny. And I am told by my daughter, who was up early to walk the dog, oh, it was sunny. Because when I finally got up and removed all the cobwebs out of my eyes or whatever at about 9:30 or whatever and looked out the window, totally overcast. And it stayed pretty well overcast straight on through the day. And I'm saying to myself, what the hell happened? Where's the sun? I mean, it was a horrible
Well,
forecast.
I didn't need to apologize because I went partly sunny to mostly cloudy, and I think that probably saved me to some degree. But these upper troughs have just been sort of. This is not the first time we've seen this happen in the last 2 months. I mean, we've had a couple of occasions where this sort of thing has happened, and we've got you can actually still see there's like bit of a rotation around the Great Lakes. I don't know if anybody was. I was watching the Bears Atlanta game, and they were getting some pretty hefty snow showers from time to time during that game. However, the weather across from Virginia southward through the southeastern Florida and across the Gulf states and through much of the plains was really nice. The new year is at least coming with no major storms around. Look at this radar. I mean, this is the thing. This I was a little bit surprised at, Joe. The radar right now. There's actually now I don't know if anything is reaching the ground, but there's a band of either some light sprinkles or light flurries moving. I'm guessing just looking at the color on the echoes that it's probably a loft that's over Connecticut and Long Island. Then there's a break, and then there's another band of another patchy area in central Pennsylvania that's moving east and approaching I-81, and then there's another break, and then there's another band in eastern Ohio. All of this is light stuff, or it's not reaching the ground, or it's just glorified flakes that just sort of come down and don't really do any much. But yeah, I'm a little surprised at the fact that the radar is as busy as it is.
I am too. And in fact, I mentioned overnight tonight, not for midnight, ball drop weather, Times Square, I've got 39 degrees, cloudy, light west winds. But after midnight, there could be, at least in, again, my zone, the lower Hudson Valley, there could be a passing shower of rain or maybe a couple of flakes of wet snow. Nothing to write home about, and not even a cheap thrill if you're looking for the white stuff. But that's certainly a possibility after midnight tonight. And whatever you're seeing now on the radar, as Joe just pointed out, probably more likely is Virga, just melting before or evaporating before hitting the ground.
There are also some light showers and parts scattered around central and southern California, but nothing to really go crazy over. Otherwise, the rest of the radars across the U.S. Um, just quiet as can be. And in fact, I'm just going to bring up the watches and warnings map because I got a feeling that when we get to the end of this week, this is going to probably be more like a Christmas tree than anything else. But on the when I looked at this earlier, and of course I'm trying to bring it up, and I'm getting the circle of death here myself, trying to bring up the Weather Service watches and warnings map. Round and round and round it goes. We'll see if it's still blank because you don't really see it too often. Oh, here it comes. Yeah, I mean, except for a couple of counties in Idaho and Oregon, Washington, western South Dakota, central Nebraska, a couple of counties in Arizona, a couple of counties in South Texas, all of which have some sort of dense fog advisories. There's two counties in northwest Montana that have a winter weather advisory. Otherwise, that's it. I mean, there's nothing. Yep, snooze fest.
That just about sums it up, doesn't it?
Yep. WPC. Now here's a clue.
Hold
WP.
on for a second, Joe.
Yeah, sure.
Is there a reason why you have him down here? You want me to bring him on?
Mr. Sweeney.
Say good. Say happy.
Hold on, I got to put your face on the camera. Hold on a second. Let's get Mr. Sweeney on the air. Oh, there's Mr. Sweeney. Oh, isn't he? He's so sweet. He's so cute.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, mine's asleep, so.
He wants to say Happy New Year to everybody.
Well,
and
he loves his daddy.
So there you are.
Aw.
Well, I don't know about me. This is more Renata's dog than my dog, and I keep telling him, I said, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for mommy, right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, WPC. So here's a clue on what they're thinking. This is the forecast that takes us to next Sunday evening. They've got a half an inch of liquid north of Albany, up touching southern Vermont and New Hampshire, and 3/4 of an inch to an inch across Pennsylvania, the Hudson Valley, and Connecticut, an inch plus. Parts of northern New Jersey, maybe you go south of Route 78 and across Long Island, an inch and a quarter to an inch and a half. And then they've got an inch and a half plus along the New Jersey shore, inch and a half plus going all the way down through much of Virginia, North and South Carolina, and Georgia. Several inches possible across southern Louisiana and southern Alabama and Mississippi. So they're looking at what they're seeing just like we are. We're seeing the same things, and they're bullish on liquid precip amounts. In the west, up and down the west coast, 3/4 of an inch to an inch as far south as San Diego, and we've got big amounts in the Sierra Nevadas of several inches of rain, of liquid equivalent, and also from San Francisco northward to southwest Oregon, where we're seeing several to many inches. The probability for at least 2 through Wednesday evening, not much. The West Virginia mountains, a few mountains in southwest PA, southwest New York, north central New York, some areas of 40 to 50% probability. Also on the upper peninsula of Michigan, and starting to wake up a little bit in the Sierra Nevadas, where we've got 50 to, actually we do have an area of 80% probability. I'm just going to put up 8 inches just for laughs and see what comes up. So this is not a big storm that we're seeing with, at least for the next 3 days. So it's probably more later in the forecast period is with regards to additional snowfall there in the Sierra Nevadas. So by the way, I apologize for the buffering. There's nothing I can do about that. I mean, my signals goes out, and that's just kind of the way it is. Hopefully it goes away, but I apologize for those of you that are experiencing some buffering issues. All right, got the GFS up. I'm just going to roll this back and start from scratch, which is this evening. And of course, you got this weak disturbance that's passing through and weakening, redeveloping with a small low offshore. I thought tomorrow, I think tomorrow's probably going to be another one of those days, cloudy to partly sunny, depending on where you are. Until this upper trough gets out of the way, it's hard to imagine that we'd go mostly sunny across the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states.
I think the first half of the day tomorrow is going to be more cloudy than anything else. I think later in the day tomorrow, we'll start getting into a drier air mass and seeing more in the way of sunshine. And a clear night tomorrow night. If you want a bright sunny day, I think you'll have to wait till Tuesday. But even then, Tuesday, low 40s, maybe a few mid 40s, not a bad day at all. And then we await the surge of colder weather coming in for later on in the week, which could set the stage, as we will see in a very few moments with Joe showing the GFS. This is what, Joe, the 18Z you have up right now?
Yeah, it
So,
wasn't that much different than the 12Z. So I figured I'd just use that one. And here's I put the upper air on the screen now just to show you this lagging upper trough in the eastern part of the United States. You've got an upper low that's sitting off the coast of Southern California, and that's where a lot of the energy is going to be coming in to the U.S. And you can see it there. This upper trough in the east actually swings offshore tomorrow night. So that should lead us to some improvement for Tuesday and Wednesday in general. We also have a couple of storm systems to deal with. Actually, Joe, this first trough is probably going to form some kind of a low offshore on Tuesday. We don't care. That's going out. But I think it is important probably to the overall scheme of things. Here comes the energy from California across Texas and across the Gulf states. And there's another trough this is on Thursday. There's another trough diving down to the north. They don't quite phase in time to bring that storm up the coast. It looks like the trough axis goes neutral right along. I'm going to draw it in so you can see the neutral tilt here. But that trough axis gets neutral right about there from upstate New York down across New Jersey and just east of North Carolina. So any surface low is probably going to be far enough offshore that we shouldn't have a problem. But here's the energy now in the west, and there's an upper low in northeastern Colorado. You can see the deep trough that moves down to Southern California and into the southwest. That gets kicked easy along eastward. But more importantly, look at what's going on near the Canadian border and points north. You see that blue area that approaches James Bay? That short wave is the leading edge of very cold air that's going to be building into southeastern Canada. And that's what would need to see hold and be impressive enough so that it'll cause cold air to bleed down into the eastern part of the United States, because this trough then goes negative as it lifts up and gets forced out underneath. You see there's a ridge that actually builds there in eastern Canada. So you got to have that. If we start seeing models back away from a ridge in eastern Canada like that, then that's going to wind up allowing this system to go more to the west. On the other hand, if it winds up being too strong, that could wind up suppressing it a bit more to the south. So, there's this double-edged sword here. I kind of think that ridge is going to be there to an extent. So we're just going to have to figure out, exactly where. And here's the funny thing, by the way, I think, is the fact that if we do wind up getting the first accumulating snow in nearly 2 years out of this, not all areas fall under that category, but certainly the metro cities do. If we wind up getting the first accumulating snow in 2 years, look at this energy that's coming into the southwest right behind it and heading for the western Great Lakes, Joe. It's going to get all washed away by the time we get to Tuesday.
Right. It will be on the warm side of that next system coming in from the southwest. And so whatever we get, enjoy it, because, again, as Joe just mentioned, it's probably going to get washed away. We'll have a push of warm air advection. We get a sizable snowfall, let's say, a few inches or more. One thing we're going to have to worry about Monday night and Tuesday is dense fog, because that warmer air is going to override that layer of snow and probably cause areas of dense fog as the air comes up. And there's nothing, Joe, I think you'll agree, there's nothing that eats away at snow
or the fog.
Yeah.
We also should point out, too, though, if you look at the European, which eventually gets to the same idea of this first system going by and then the second system going to our west, the Europeans got, I don't know if you looked at it, Joe, but the Europeans got it a little differently, because it has more of a deepening primary that goes up like into Ohio and western Pennsylvania, but it holds that high in so long that it actually wedges cold air down, so that it's suggested that there could be a front end thump of snow or sleet or both before it goes over to a heavy rain. But you know what? That's we're talking 10 days from 9 days from now.
Right.
Let's get the first one out of the way and see what that does. But
And the problem is that you just pointed this out a few minutes ago about the fact that we have, before the one that we're talking about for next weekend, we have a couple of other systems that are going to be getting involved here. And depending upon what those two systems do, may eventually turn the tide for what we're anticipating for next weekend.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. These two lead systems are going to be very important to watch because they're going to play a big role. Now, here's the GFS. This is 2 a.m. next Sunday, and again, here's that high I'm talking about. That's in eastern Canada, and this high, actually, if you believe the GFS and even the European to some extent, it would even suggest that it starts to snow as far south as northern Virginia. So I mean, this is fairly cold air, and if the models are correct in trying to hold that high somewhat in place, it's going to force that low to come out somewhere off the Delaware coast and then head out to the east from there. So you can look at this and say, Joe, that this is almost kind of like the perfect track, but I sort of for New York City anyway, and points north and east, and maybe just north and west of Philadelphia. Now, if it's a little further south, then which it certainly could be, depending on what those lead systems do. But um, you know, if we're seeing a perfect track six days away, I wonder how much more adjusting it has to do, which it may still have. It may still be. It may still adjust north or south over time. So.
You well know as well as I do that if you see something on a map 5, 6, 7 days in advance, rarely, and I do want to underscore that word rarely, does what you see 5, 6, 7 days in advance correspond to what actually happens.
Right.
There's always going to be a turn more to the left or turn more to the right. You know, you can look at this and say in a general sense, hey, we finally have a shot. We have maybe something coming our way. You're looking for snow, maybe something coming our way for next week. But you don't say definitively that we've got snow or rain or whatever, because, again, things can change. And since we do have two systems that, and the computer models, the algorithms that are built into these short and midterm models, the GFS, the European, the Canadian, any other model you want to think of, they're solely guessing based on mathematical calculations as to where those first two systems are going to go and how they're going to play a role in what comes our way next weekend. That's why it's always very, very. And Joe and I, we when we first got involved in this game 40 plus years ago, and we said, "Wow, look at this! These computer models, isn't fantastic?" And we used to look at events coming our way 3, 4, 5 days down the road and take it as at face value.
Right.
And then we always got very disappointed because what we saw 4 or 5 days down the road when the event finally came, it never ever ended up being what we were hoping or anticipating. So,
nope.
and this has not changed. This has not changed over all of these years. These are just machines. Like the late Tex Antoine, when he used to do the weather here in New York, he never referred to them as computer models or computer guides. He always said, "And the machines say."
Yes.
Of course, he would laugh. But that's how it goes. And so come back Wednesday. I mean, don't go away tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Come back Wednesday or Thursday, and I think by then Joe and I will have a much stronger opinion as to what we may very well see next weekend.
Also, I stopped the map at next Sunday morning because I also want to point out that there's, the next system behind it is going to be at the same time producing probably some substantial snows in parts of Nevada, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana. So we're going to probably have two storm systems in play here. With, as I said earlier, when that watches and warnings come up, when we look at those maybe at the end of the week, we're probably going to see it lit up like a Christmas tree with various advisories and warnings. And you see the first low goes out, and 2 days later, as we get into Tuesday, here comes the next one, which the GFS takes over, well up to the northwest into the lakes. The European is much more southeast. which would, again, as I mentioned, as I said, it has a sort of a front end thump of snow and sleet before it goes over to rain, but we'll deal with that. And then it has very cold air that comes in behind it, which sort of makes sense. That Great Lakes low is probably part of this, all of this pattern change. Now, again, if you're looking, I've seen comments from people about, what pattern change? What are you talking about? It's not changed. It did not change. If you don't know what you're looking at, okay? Because just just looking at these maps over the next 10 days, we saw nothing like this in the prior 30 days. Okay, so it is the pattern is changing. I still think we have not gotten to whatever that final place is going to be with regards to the pattern for the west of the winter. But I think we still maybe have another 10 days or so, 10 days to 2 weeks to get that process done, and then we'll go from there. But um, you have to be encouraged, Joe. If you're a winter weather lover, you got to be encouraged the fact that this window opened up the way it did, because I don't know that anybody really foresaw um, something like this to this extent if it winds up verifying this way.
Absolutely, absolutely, and again, it's something to talk about, because the last month we've been talking about a lot of other stuff on this show.
Big rainstorms.
But we haven't had a chance to really get excited or get revved up for what could be a winter event. And that, again, still about a week away, but it gives us something to talk about. And who's to say, Joe, that, the first two systems that we speak of may not be totally out of the picture for us. Maybe, sometime what you have tunnel vision, and you overlook something that is coming before the main event that does something that you aren't expecting.
Yep. Okay, let's do a little bit of Briller Jeopardy tonight, and then we can wrap it up, because it is New Year's Eve, and maybe people have parties to go to or places to go, or maybe they're just going to do what I'm going to do, which is go to bed. All right, so on tonight's Briller Jeopardy, what is the average high temperature? Now, by the way, I hope, there's a certain channel apparently who's doing the same thing. So I'm wondering whether they might be lurking in the background, Joe, and writing these questions down. You think that's possible? We won't say the channel specifically, but no. You think maybe they're there?
We're something unique out of all of the weather, social on social media. Out of all the weather shows, we certainly do ours in a rather interesting and unique manner. So,
well, that's because you and I are unique and euphonious.
Yes, or something like that.
Something like that. Okay, so here we go. Briller Jeopardy tonight for the following 5 cities. The average high temperature in the month of January. Okay, and we will start with Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta, Georgia. I'm gonna write the town in on the chat board, so this way everybody can see what we're talking about, and you can post your guesses, folks. But Mr. Rayo, would you like to take a stab at this?
Well, this should be easy for you, but of course you've got the answers in front of you. But I mean,
right.
If you
well, I will tell you, by the way, because being that I'm in the North Georgia mountains here, the last 2 days. Today we got to 52 for a high, but yesterday and the day before we did not get above 36 on either day for a daytime high, and we were in the 20s. It's also snowed here the last 2 days. Not a lot, but enough that you saw some flurries at my level. And then if you went up above 4,000 feet, they probably wound up with a coating to an inch or so, because all the mountaintops were covered in white the last 2 mornings, and it was very, very pretty to see. We've got some Atlanta guesses. Jason Fox at 50.
I'm going to say for you, Joe, in honor of you, since you've used this term so many times on your weathercasts until the gas bag got upset. Double nickels.
And you know what? Lou Alessi has double nickels too. And if it was a snake, it would have bit you, because Joe Lopresti got it right. And the answer is 54. 54 is the answer. Okay, the next city.
We're not going to get in trouble with the gas bag for saying that, are we?
I don't know that the deer gas bag. You that carnival was some on the road somewhere. Carnival barkers have to go along with it. Um, how about Baltimore?
Baltimore or Balmer.
Balmer.
Oh, I don't know. I have no. What can I say? 40, 44.
Oh, once again, Joe, that snake would have bit you. David Fuller says 40. Jason Barry 46. Lord Kate at 49. Frank Scalera at 52. Maggie P at 48. And you said 44, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Christina Pedius is 40, so that's on the low end of the range. Um, you were very close.
If it was a snake, it either was 43 or 45.
Right, and correct. And Frank Scalera hits it at 43. And Dennis Cassia was on the other side of that with 45.
Right.
Okay, the next one is Boston.
Beantown.
Boston.
Oh, I don't know. New York. I know New York is something like 37 or 38 or whatever. So what could it possibly be in Boston? Somewhere around that same frame. I'll say 37.
And you have finally avoided the snake and hit the correct answer, as did David Fuller. 37 is the average high. Now, what about Buffalo?
Oh, Buffalo. I don't know. Buffalo. See, Buffalo.
Don't overthink it.
I don't know. See, Buffalo. I mean, they get lake effect in January, and some days they can be abnormally mild or whatever. I don't know. 30. And Boston was what? What did I say?
37.
I'll say 35. In fact, David Simmons says 35 as well.
Right. Well, Tim is close at 33. Latex Dream. So is Frank R. at 33. Teresa Da Silva at 29, a little too low. Lord Kate at 25, a lot too low. Bella Lugrissi at 22, way too low. Robert Lomnicki at 39 is way too high. Chris Alley at 34 is not too far. You're all dancing around it. Joe Z got it at 32. 32. Okay, 32 it is. The next one is Chicago.
Windy City.
Yes. Chicago.
Chicago. The toddling town. What was it? Buffalo again? 32?
Yes.
It was 37 for Boston. I'll say 30. I'll say 34.
Back to the snake again. Actually, Joe's Weather Channel got it right off the bat at 33. 33. Wow. And the bonus tonight is Caribou, Maine.
Oh, God. How about 23?
Close. Very close. You did good tonight. You only missed it by, a lot of them you only missed by one. But you're very close. Caribou. Not -5, Jackie Blues. That's a little bit too low. Jason Fox, very, very close at double twos. Snake Eyes. Double twos is very close. And I'm seeing everybody's up they're still doing Chicago here, so I'm playing catch up. Robert Heiss. Welcome to the chat board, Robert. I don't think I've ever seen you here. Robert Heiss, 28. Lord Kate gets it. Lord Kate, 21. 21. All right. I don't have really too much else to add. I mean, we did our little rant earlier with the whole Maine situation, so we got that done. You have anything else to add as we close an end to this year and go to next year?
No, not really. There may be a few appetizers on the kitchen table
Oh,
as we move.
some Horty Orvies?
God, we in fact when we started the show, we just before we started the show, we got back from having dinner at a local restaurant. So,
Good.
Joe, frankly, I almost feel like I think it was the second year we were married. We went to bed at 10 o'clock. We said we'll wake up around midnight. Phone rang at like 12:15. We slept right through the new year. I know I almost feel like doing that tonight, but
go to bed. It's highly over. I have no interest at all. Especially I don't get. I've never understood people that go to Times Square. I just don't. You go there, you can't. Once you go in, you can't get out. And there's no place to go to the bathroom. So you basically have to wear a diaper while you're there. And I'm just not doing that. Not by choice. We may get old enough one day that we may have to be in diapers, but that's a whole different scenario. But to actually go someplace and say, okay, I know, let's go have a great time at Times Square at New Year's, and I have to put diapers on because you're not allowed, there's no bathrooms and you're not allowed to use the bath. Nobody's going to let you use the bathrooms there. So I just the whole concept to me is a big no.
It was always a secret desire, by the way, when I was in the broadcasting business, that we would do a remote from Times Square. I always wanted to do like a live, be like either Dick Clark or the old radio and television broadcaster Ben Grauer. Just stand there and like scream above the crowd and saying, 20 seconds to go, that kind of thing. One time they did suggest that I do the ball drop in White Plains. Yes. In White Plains, New York, they have a ball drop. But I said, no, I don't think I would want to do something like that. So,
it's a Spalding.
Yes. Exactly.
All right, the Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight, brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest-growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And use the coupon code I Want a Weather Station. And if you do, you'll get
a big 10% off.
And Tempest is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show. And go ahead, Joe.
94 likes. 94. I mean, you would think that we would be able to get 6 more likes.
More important than the ball drop is the bell ring.
The bell ring.
The bell ring. So we need to get 100 likes to get the bell rung, and we've been ringing that bell quite a bit lately. So if you like the show, hit the like button so that we can ring the bell and go to bed.
Maybe we'll make it to 100 if I read the list of people who hit the tip jar tonight, led off by Vince Robinson, David Fuller, the chairman Scott Briller, Joseph Lepresti, Chuck Cardillo, Helen Bertona, and Louis Alessi. Thank you very, very, and Michael McGuire. Michael McGuire just hit super chat.
Yes,
Joe.
He did. Thank you, Michael. Happy New Year, he says. And you can ring the bell. Joe.
Really?
Yeah, I got 100.
Yeah, I'm still stuck on 94, but I will ring it.
Ring the 102. You can ring it.
There you go. Ring, 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 ring.
And on that note, folks, Happy New